Well, good evening, and welcome back to yet more Texas Talkin', the only show brave enough to say out loud what everyone else just seems to mutter into their TV sets. Now, before we bring on tonight's guest, let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever noticed how Washington somehow gets richer, louder, and more clueless every single year, while Texas gets the bill? Because that's not an accident, folks. That's a system. And the system is working perfectly, just not for you. Here's how it usually goes: Congress shows up, pretends to argue on cable news, passes a 2,400-page bill no one read, sends your money to places that you couldn't find on a map, and frankly, neither could I, and then flies home to tell you how hard their job is. It's performance art, bad performance art, and you're paying for the tickets. Which brings us to 2026, and to a man who seems to have missed the memo that you're supposed to get corrupted after you go to Washington. I'm talking about Jason Corley. Now, the first thing the political class wants you to know about Mr. Corley is that he's dangerous. And by dangerous, they mean something very specific. He's not impressed by them. He doesn't worship the institutions. He doesn't bow to the consultants. And he doesn't believe that Texas exists to politely fund the failures of Washington, D.C. That alone makes him a problem. Jason Corley is the kind of candidate who asks uncomfortable questions, like why unelected bureaucrats have more power than your vote, or why Congress can secure Ukraine's border faster than Texas, or why regular Americans are told to tighten our belts while Washington loosens theirs so much they need suspenders made of your tax dollars. And here's the truly radical part. He thinks Texas should come first. I know, crazy. Someone call the think tanks. Corley isn't running to become Congressman Jason Corley so he can update his bio and start fundraising off airport delays. He's running because too many in Congress think normal Texans are the problem, and he knows they're wrong. He believes in a government that fears its citizens a little, the way the founders intended. He believes energy independence isn't a slogan, it's survival. He believes the Constitution isn't outdated, it's inconvenient to the ruling elite, especially if you like power without permission. And that's why they're nervous. Because Jason Corley doesn't sound like Washington. He sounds like Texas. He talks like someone who's actually had to live under the policies Congress passes. Someone who knows that freedom isn't something the government gives you, it's something they're always trying to take back, one regulation at a time. So before the usual crowd tells you he's too bold, too disruptive, or my personal favorite, too extreme, remember this: nothing is more extreme than doing nothing while the country slides off a cliff. Jason Corley isn't running to perpetuate the status quo in Congress, and that's why we're talking to him tonight. So stay right there, my friends, because this is the conversation Washington probably hopes you don't hear. Let's get dialed in. And joining us now is Lubbock County Commissioner Jason Corley, who also happens to be running for Congress. Mr. Corley, welcome to Texas Talkin'.
Carlo, thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. It's a pleasure to have you on tonight. And I want to start out. You just went through, as a county commissioner, one of the most bizarre legal battles and came out victoriously, I might add, that I've ever heard of. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, my county judge is not making us look too hot up here in Lubbock County. So Texas has what's known as a resign to run rule. This was a rule that was put in place to stop county commissioners from being able to run against their county judge going back to the early 90s. Anyways, what it states is that a sitting county commissioner cannot announce their intent to run for another office until exactly 1 year and 30 days before the end of their term. So basically, that means December 2nd, before the year before you would get out of office. So if you want to try to run in the primary, you got to wait to the last minute, and then you got to be careful how you do it. So if you find yourself in that position, best thing you can do is contact a good lawyer, Ben Garcia, Eric Opiella out of Austin, and talk to them first before you do that, and they'll properly advise you. So there's two things that you can do that will trigger the resign to run rule that can get you removed for office. One of those is making a public declaration of your intent to run, which I did not do. Launching an exploratory committee does not count as announcing your intent to run. The other thing that you can do that triggers this resign to run rule is to make a public statement. So that can be, if you put out a flyer, if you put out, announcing that you're running, if you were to put out something that's for public consumption, or if you tell a group of people at a restaurant loud enough that it can be overheard by other guests, that constitutes a public announcement. But sending a text message to somebody, saying, "Hey, I think I'm going to run," that's not considered public. So that's kind of the layman's terms on it.
And so ultimately, you were allowed to continue on in your capacity as county commissioner, if I understand correctly.
Yes. So the county judge had me removed from office one morning before commissioner's court, and had two armed deputies escort me to my office, where they had me remove all of my belongings from my office. And while I was being detained doing that, the judge went upstairs and swore in a new county commissioner. So because they had me in my office there, I was not able to go to the district clerk's office and file a temporary restraining order against the judge's actions. Had I been able to do that, then I would not have been removed from office. It would have had to gone before a district judge.
And now you're running for Congress. Tell us about that.
Yes, sir. Well, I'd like to thank my county judge for all the free publicity he got me. That's for sure. We're here talking today about
here. You are, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if that qualifies for an in-kind donation, but I'll check with my consultant. So so I've been a county commissioner for 7 years. People in Lubbock County know me pretty well as the guy who's going to work to keep the taxes lower. That's what I've always done. We did the
fiscal hawk
walkout. What's that?
A fiscal hawk.
Yes, sir. Yeah, always been a fiscal hawk. Also, my constituents knew if they had a problem, if you're dealing with government and you don't know where to go or who to turn to, just call your county commissioner, call Corley. It's what a lot of people would just say. And, I'll help you figure it out. Maybe it's something we got to go deal with over at Carl Tepper's office. Maybe it's something with Jody Arrington's office. No big deal. I've got a Rolodex. We'll go through it. We'll figure out who we need to talk to. But, that's always been, what people have known me for in this area. And, word's kind of gotten out since I've been in office for the last 7 years, and, made its way down to Taylor County, into Abilene, up here. We're in Plainview today, up here in Hale County. So, word's kind of gotten around. So great name ID, very thankful for that. And just trying to get out, make the rounds, and talk to as many people about the issues as possible.
And speaking of issues, what are the issues as you see it that are most important, or that voters are telling you is most important to them, that you'd like to really take a stab at in Congress?
The biggest one right now is going to be affordability. I mean, doesn't matter if you're talking to somebody, who's over 65, they're talking about affordability at the doctor's office, affordability at the pharmacy. If you're talking about somebody who's 18, just, about to just get out of high school, about to start college, it's housing affordability, or it's education affordability. If you're talking with somebody like myself, you got 2 kids, you got one in college, you got one in grade school, we're talking about what the price at the grocery store. If you're talking with a farmer, he's talking about affordability of input costs. Talking with the rancher, he's talking about, how much he's able to get for his cattle by the meat packers. So, affordability is the number one question. So that's going to be 2 things. One, the interest rates, tackling that, and getting this inflation under control.
And let's get down to some causes and conditions here on affordability. Why do you think it has become the cataclysmic problem that it is for so many Americans right now? Prices of everything you just laid out. What's the root cause, and what are some of the solutions?
Well, it's the inflation. That's the number one thing. And inflation, it's printing money. That's what causes the inflation. So it's, inflation, Thomas Sewell, you say it's like a hangover. You had your fun the night before, and brilliant, man. And then he said, now today's the hangover. Well, that's the inflation. We printed off all that money for COVID, all the ARPA money that got put out there. And, we met, just the government just literally sent people checks in the mail. And printing all that money, it didn't do us any favors. It didn't get us out of a depression. It didn't save us from anything in the market. It just created a glut in the market for cash, and now that money's gone. So this is the hangover that comes afterwards. It kicked up the inflation, so now we're having to deal with that. Things are a lot more expensive, and every time the government does something that causes inflation, wages are always the last thing to go up. So that's where we're at. So it's just going to take a little bit time for that to go down. But the other thing too, our economists were smarter back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. They knew that depressions come and go. My background was in the oil field, so we just call it boom and bust. That's just life. So you never want to get too far overextended because you never know. You may have a bust the next day. So, anyways, they used to be a lot smarter about this, and they just left it alone. They just let the economy do its thing. So you get a little boom and you have a little bust. You have a little, you have a little recession from time to time, and things go back to normal. But every time government gets involved, and we start to put our finger on the scale, it throws things off. It makes things even longer. The Great Depression's a good example of that. The housing crunch, that was caused by government interference. COVID is another time, that was caused by government interference. So, every time the government gets involved, it just makes it 10 times worse.
Do you think tariffs is the government putting its finger on the scale?
Tariffs is a way to fund a government. It's one way of doing it. Um, you know, it'll normal out. You just got to give it a little bit of time. But in the meantime, you've got to take care of the people that are having to pay the tariffs. So if you're in oil and gas, the biggest problem right now is getting steel in for tubulars, whether that's casing that you're trying to run or drill pipe. So we need to get more American supply here so that so it's not such a burden on us. The other thing too is going to be for our farmers. You can pass any farm bill you want. If America's not going to get out there and defend our farmers in the world market with our commodity crops, then it's all for naught. And people point to, well, the trade war with China, that's causing all these problems. Well, China decided to get food independent of the United States back in 2017. They started with the BRICS nations. They've been working really closely with Brazil and India to try to get off of American produce and commodity crops, and they've done that in a lot of ways. So we don't quite have that customer that we had before, but that was not caused by tariffs. If there's been a whole lot of other problems going all the way. Depends how far back you want to go, but the tariffs, that's if it's a problem, it's like the final nail in the coffin. It's not the worst thing. It's just kind of the latest thing that's happened.
Commissioner, why does it feel like Congress practically almost accomplishes nothing?
Well, because that's the reality. But the thing about it though, if Congress did nothing, if they did absolutely nothing, we might be better off.
That's kind of where I'm at with it, right?
Yeah. That worked out for Spain. They shut their government down for how long? And then people get together like, is the government going again? I don't know, whatever. Nobody seemed to mind. That went on for years. But if we have another government shutdown, I really don't have a problem with that. But we need to fix two things.
You're out on the campaign trail. Yeah. I'll let our viewers know that right now. It sounds like we got a little bit about that interference. That's okay.
Two things that two things that we're definitely going to have to get fixed. Sorry about that. Give me your question one more time.
I was just saying, it feels like Congress practically accomplishes nothing. I mean, as a viewer of politics, right, an analyst, a commentator. I mean, yes, of course, there are accomplishments, spending bills that may benefit certain programs. It just feels like, from what I hear from most voters, that the favorability rating of Congress is just catastrophically low, and it rarely accomplishes anything.
Yep. Yeah. If you turned it off tomorrow, would you notice a difference? Sorry. That was what I was going to say. If we have another government shutdown, two things we need to fix. Social Security, people need to get their checks. That needs to happen. People in the military need to get their paycheck. Go ahead and change those two things, and then just shut it down for a while until we can work things out. If we don't have a balanced budget amendment, that's fine. Shut it down until we get one. We didn't put together a true budget. That's fine. Shut it down. I want to see the omnibus get turned into a minibus. That thing needs to go away completely.
Well, Mr. Corley, where can our viewers go if they want to learn more about you, especially those folks who live in your congressional district, and where might be a good place for them to learn more about your candidacy?
So two great places. One, just call my personal cell phone number. It's 806-577-9778.
Now that's
Half of Lubbock
refreshing.
County's got it already. The other place to check is just to go to the website. It's jasoncorley4texas.com.
Commissioner, I want to thank you for taking some time to come on and talk to us this evening, sir. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great state of Texas. Thank you for helping us keep Texas talking.
You as well. Thank you.
Stay dialed in to interviews and content just like this by clicking that follow button on my Facebook page, or hit the subscribe button to learn more about exclusive access that you won't want to miss.